and of course the distinguished member of the press. Thank you so much, and of course, welcome to the preliminary press briefing for Kimpact Development Initiative Election Day Data Room. And of course, haven't seen what has happened on the field. It's my honor to also have distinguished members on this panel to be able to brief stakeholders and the press on what has been our findings for today. And of course, I also have, to my right, I have the Senior Program Manager Elections for KDI, Umar Dan Asabe Mohammed. I also have Dr. Ekere Nwanko. I hope I caught that correctly. She's a member of the KDI EDDR as an expert. And of course, I have Tracy Keshi, also to my right. She's also an expert, election expert with decades of experience. And I also have Sunday Alao, also to my right, that have worked and traversed greatly in the continent, most especially on issues related to elections. And for my own self, I'm Oluwafemi John Adebayo. I lead the research team of KDI. And to my left is Mercy Habiem. She's program manager in KDI, and of course, Abiodun Banjoko, senior program manager in charge of citizen participation. Thank you so much for coming, and I think we'll go directly into the reading of the statement. The Kimpact Development Initiative preliminary statement on the ongoing 2025 off-cycle Anambra State governorship elections for 8th of November 2025. It's with great pleasure to welcome you to the mid-election day press briefing organized by Kimpact Development Initiative under the Nigeria Election Violence Education and Resolution Project for the 2025 Anambra State off-cycle governorship elections, holding today, of course, today Saturday, November 8, 2025. Across the 21 local governments, the senatorial district, which is 3 of them, federal constituencies 11, 326 registration area, and of course, 5718 polling unit. We will all recall that there are 2 polling units announced by INEC not to have any registered voter. So that made that the elections were conducted in 5718 polling unit. The briefing aimed to provide real-time insight into the ongoing electoral process, including field observations, incident report, and preliminary findings from the KDI deployed observer, which is 370 trained observers deployed across the state. The objective of the briefing is to keep you, the public, and all stakeholders, including the media, informed about developments on election day, highlighting the emerging issues, trends, and of course, making early recommendations that could help contribute to improving the process as we move, to the other part of the process, which is the sorting, counting, and of course, collations. As an organization, we are committed to democratic integrity, civic participation, and of course, peaceful process in the elections. Through our interventions that continues to track and document issues of electoral-related incidents, such as security breaches, voter intimidation, and generally the act of violence that are related to elections. And of course, potential for violence, such as logistical challenges, vast functionality, vote trading, and interference from party agents. While we do this, we also spotlight instances of transparency and compliance with electoral guidelines. The 2025 Anambra governorship election for us is a critical test of Nigerians' democratic resilience given the significance of the polls in Anambra as we move ahead to the next general elections. And I'll go directly to giving us an update or to talk about the KDI Election Day Data Room. The KDI Election Day Data Room serves as the central coordination, verification, and analytical hub for managing real-time election observation and incident data. It is the operational backbone of KDI's Election Day observation methodology, linking verified field report to decision makers, partners, and the public through our structured and transparent workflow. And I know many of us were visited today and some of us yesterday to see some of the things we've been able to do. I know before now there are some briefing around the data we've been able to get to some of the stakeholders. So in view of that, the EDDR operates in continuous shift throughout the election period, ensuring uninterrupted monitoring, verification, and of course, responses as much as possible because we escalate to stakeholders. It is managed by multidisciplinary team organized into functional units with clearly defined roles, shift arrangement, and reporting lines. This structure enables efficient receipt verification, analysis, and visualization of all submission. The KDI EDDR was set up, of course, in the state and opened yesterday, and of course, till this moment. It provides the structured, phase-specific observation framework to allow KDI generate the real-time data. So basically, for today and across the 21 local government, we were able to get data from over 1,000 polling units in the state through the KDI Niger Talks reporting hub with over 300 trained observers deployed across the local government. And of course, it's also safe to acknowledge the fact that the reports or the local government are actually, the polling units are across the local government and of course across the 3 senatorial districts. So all of these were sent by our field observers to the field, from the field to the data room, where the information is sifted, verified, and analyzed by the KDI data analyst. And of course, we also have the communication framework, and that's why we're here. The communication framework balances the internal coordination, public transparency, stakeholders engagement, while maintaining the integrity, legality, and ethical standard of all verified data shared externally. And of course, to the key observation, and I will allow Sunday Alao to pick it from the key observation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I will take some aspect of the key observations / finding. The first will be the arrival and commencement of polls. The election day data room received reports on arrival from 1,016 polling units across Anambra State. Analysis shows that INEC officials and election materials were reported to have arrived late in 32.15% of those units, while in 67.85% materials arrived earlier. Nevertheless, in the polling units observed, voting commenced after 8:45 a.m. in close to 50% of the polling units. KDI observed that late commencement was due to absence of INEC officials in some places, voters, and at other instances, INEC ad hoc officials linked the late commencement to the absence of security officials, without which they couldn't move from the rack to commence the voting process for security purposes. The second would be BVAC's functionality. KDI observed that BVAC's devices function optimally in 95.6% of the polling units monitored across the state. A few polling units, about 2.64%, experienced minor network-related disruptions, which were promptly resolved in several cases. In some other locations, BVACs failed to capture fingerprints, requiring officials to revert to facial authentication to complete the voter verification process. However, Devices broke down in about 1.76% of the polling units observed. The third element will be the secrecy of the ballot. KDI observed widespread compromise of ballot secrecy across several polling units. Voters were seen openly displaying their marked ballot to party agents after voting, a practice that fosters vote trading and undermines the integrity of the electoral process. In many instances, party agents were observed leading voters away from the polling units after confirming their votes to get the reward for voting in certain direction. Evidence from field suggests a concerning level of tacit consensus among multiple political party agents in perpetuating this practice. The fourth element was the party agent conduct and interference. One of the most concerning developments observed across polling units is the pervasive interference by political party agents in the voting process. Our observation documentation shows systematic violation of the electoral guidelines by agents representing primarily the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, the All Progressive Congress, APC, and the Young Progressives Party, YPP. Party agents have been observed engaging in blatant vote-buying operations, approaching voters with cash inducement ranging from 3,000 to 10,000, establishing verification points where voters received payments after casting their ballots. These violations represent a fundamental assault on the integrity of the electoral process, undermining the principles of free, fair, and credible elections, while the failure of INEC officials and security personnel at affected polling units to curtail these activities raises serious concern about the enforcement of electoral guidelines and protection of voters' rights. I would hand over to my colleague to continue with the recommendations.
So for security deployment, conduct of security officials, while the Nigerian police and broadly the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, ICES, announced the deployment of approximately 55,000 security personnel for the Anambra State governorship election across all 5,718 polling units. Field reports from our observers reveal a troubling disconnect between these figures and actual ground presence. Our observers have documented sparse and uneven distribution of security personnel at polling units, with many locations having minimal or no visible security presence, while security forces appear concentrated at strategic locations. There were reports of security concentration in Anambra South, like Agwata, but major urban centers and semi-urban local government areas seems to have sparse. Reports show that in Awka South LGA, Ward 19 PU, polling unit 21, as at 9:57 a.m., no security officer was seen. In terms of violence, so far, KDI recorded 21 incidents of violence across the over 1,000 polling units observed. These incidents involved group clashes, voter intimidation and harassment, physical assault, and ballot box snatching. Of the reported cases, 7 in Oyi, 3 occurred in Obaru, in Jikoka, and 1 in Anambra East, Anyocha, Nnewi North, Orumba, and Nnewi South. The perpetrators were identified as party agents and voters, with 1 incident involving a security officer who discharged tear gas at a polling station, a polling location. In terms of voter turnout, preliminary observations from KDI field reports indicate low voter turnout across several polling units. Observers noted that many polling stations were sparsely populated, with some officials seen seated with only 2 to 5 voters waiting in line. While turnout appeared low in the early hours, it is hoped that more voters will come out before the close of polls.
Now call to action based on the observations. KDI calls on all stakeholders, including voters, party agents, security personnel, and electoral officials to maintain peace, calm, and decorum throughout the electoral process. We reiterate the importance of transparency at every stage of the election and emphasize that the final results must truly reflect the will of the people. We urge voters to come out to cast their votes as the election is still in progress. Remain calm, queue patiently, and follow the instructions of the election officials to ensure a smooth process. Citizens are also encouraged to report any irregularities they observe through official channels such as the INEC helpline and other credible civic platforms, such as KDI's toll-free line on 080000010000. Collective vigilance, patience, and adherence to due process are vital to safeguarding the credibility of the polls.
Thank you so much. I think that is the preliminary statement and findings for Kimpact Development Initiative. We will continue to put an eye on this process, and as it is now, I know the time is close, or even if not that we're at the point where sorting, counting, and collation will start. We'll also put an eye on it, and at the moment, KDI will be moving into what we call the ballot integrity project, or the phase of our intervention, where we now start looking at the process of election result management. I think at this point, it's just to ask if there are any questions, clarifications. Yes.
Thank you. I am Princess Ekwi Ajida of the Anambra Broadcasting Service. During your interactions, you spoke about the incidences you witnessed in Oyi. Actually, I covered Oyi, but I know there are polling units where there were no security officials. The markets were open and the rest of them, but I didn't register any of the incidences. So can you tell me exactly in the community happened? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think for us at the Oyi local government, first of all, I will start by letting you know what we'll define as violence-related incident. I think just to say at first that it's not just fatality that is violence to us. Intimidation and harassment were mostly some of the things we record in those polling units. Beyond intimidation and harassment, we also seen cases where there are serious and tense arguments that were paused. For us, that is leading to the implication or the impact of that harassment. The moment it has implication on the process, it's something. And of course, it's psychological violence, to be able to put that in context. Yeah, I also saw that you shrunk in a certain way when we spoke about ballot box nation. I think it's also very important to also put a bit of context to that. That happened in Ogbaro local government. But we saw, we also follow up to see what has happened afterwards. The security agent there, it was actually snatched not by armed group. So the security agent there were able to restore peace, and as of the time we reach out, they were also giving us the information that there is possibility for them to continue the process. So, but, all right, so that's just on that. Thank you so. Oh,
I forgot something.
Oh, okay, please go ahead.
Actually, what I wanted to, another of my questions is, now that every political party is involved in vote buying, what's the way out? Every party. Nobody is exempted. What is the way out?
Thank you. My name is Juan Osikon of the Nation Newspapers. When you were reeling out those areas where you talked about intimidation and harassment, I didn't quite get all of them. And my sister has talked about this vote buying of 13. You made mention of 3 political parties out of 16. Are they the only ones involved? You said APC, YPP, ABGA. Are they the only ones involved? Please, we want to, know those ones.
Thank you.
Tell us those areas. I didn't quite get them.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vincent Sokushi. I report for Quality TV. Yeah, during the course of our field work, we observed that most voters are new in the system, and they were not properly educated when it comes to vote buying. Now, what should your organization do to ensure that there are so many new upcoming ones who doesn't know about vote buying? And she was so excited when she was telling us how they paid her, in fact, she was so excited. What can you do as civil society organization? What can you do? Because when you look at this vote buying, it's killing our society. And people believe that there is no two ways about it. They have to do what they feel is best for them. Secondly, we are on our way to other polling units. We saw some market women in the market, and we interviewed them, and they told us that their votes have never counted. They said they believe in their business, that we should give them money if we want them to go and vote. So if you look at it, there are so many voter parties. And I know you people are doing a lot, but what can you do best to ensure that everyone is carried along and curb these votes buying menace? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll start with the first question that talked about, I think, vote buying. Or I'd rather address the one that talked about party agent conduct and interference. Our press statement said, systematic violation of electoral guidelines by agents representing primarily the APC, the ABGA, APC, and YPP. This means that every other political party may have been involved, but this is like the most prevalent cases, yes, that we saw. Then in terms of vote buying and selling, I think this is a collective effort. It's not just for civil society organization, even the media. This is an offense, an electoral offense that has, is an electoral offense with, that should be prosecuted. So it is our duty as Nigerians, as Anambarians, to continue education, civic education on vote buying and selling. And then we need to, for example, you have the EFCC, ICPC, they are agencies in charge of prosecuting people who commit electoral offenses. Have we engaged these agencies to highlight that, okay, this is very prevalent for this election? How can these people be brought to book? These are conversations that can be held. Even INEC, engaging with them, putting it on the front burners in the media, talking about it. It's a collective effort. It is a menace that has eaten deeply into the fabrics of our society, but it is something that can be tackled if we collectively put efforts together. We need to continue our jingles on civic education. We need to continue our jingles on voter education. We need to educate Nigerians on the effects of vote buying. And we need to make them understand that this is an offense and every necessary prosecution should be applied to vote buying and selling. And I think the media has a huge role to play in this perspective or in this aspect. Media has to continuously put it in the front burner. Media has to continuously educate the people, both the young voters and even the existing ones, on the effects of vote buying and selling, especially as we head towards 2027 elections. Because if we're seeing this for a state by-elections, who would tell what will happen in 2027? So this shows that we need to intensify our efforts in voter education, sensitizing citizens on why this shouldn't be, as well as engaging the agencies who are in charge of prosecuting electoral offenders to ensure that these offenders are being prosecuted. I don't know if you have something to
Okay,
add.
absolutely. These questions raised are very fundamental to what we have observed. Interestingly, voter apathy and vote buying have a correlation. If you ask me, the few who have indeed come out to vote were motivated to vote because either they have been given something or in anticipation that they will get something. So there is even a link between these two. But like she said, we have to intensify voter education. And there are, every stakeholder has a role to play. The government agencies, the donor agencies, the civil societies, and I think we were having a conversation when we came back from the field, and I was of the opinion that donor agencies, some of whom are here, should really begin to look at providing interventions at the grassroots level, because we are seeing national level or Abuja-based interventions not trickling down to the grassroots. Everybody in Abuja seems to be aware or conscious of these things, but when you come down to the grassroots, people are oblivious of some of the things that is going on in Abuja. So I think voter education, we have to look at all the sectors, all the dimensions that applies. She talked about enforcement of the guidelines of the rules. Incidentally, most of these things are done in the presence of security personnel who are handicapped, and which shouldn't be the case. So we should understand what are the underlying factors that is preventing these security agencies from performing the attacks. Now, as our democracy consolidates, people are failing to see a corresponding prosperity in terms of in their lives and in their economy. So there is a disconnect between democratic consolidation and economic prosperity. And, you know, the reward is now the decline of people participating in the democratic process. So I think the more democratic dividends, the more people will be instigated or excited to come out to vote. Unfortunately, the political class has mastered the act of this instant reward on election day to motivate voters, which is not sustainable and which is dangerous to democratic progression. So that is something that has to be looked at to enhance or improve voter participation in the election. People must relate democracy to what comes to them in terms of their economic well-being. People have to see it, people have to feel it in order for them to be eager to participate in the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, okay, in terms of the local government, I think it's fine. We have a dashboard that maybe after the presentation, we can even all look through it together for you to pick all of this information broken down, you know, into the bits and granularly as we progress. And of course, I know that my colleagues will make this available for us so that we can also look at it there. But I think I will prefer that we look at the data from the dashboard. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ifi Onachukwu. I'm a member of the KDI Peace Mediation Working Group. Moving out this morning to monitor a few places because we have been in the studios receiving calls from different parts of the state to inform the number of what's going on and then allow them to participate in the process. But when, going out, I observed some things. The police released the figure of 55,000 policemen on the streets, of Anambra State. But I'm just saying, should we just accept the number they gave to us? Or is there something behind it? Because in those good old days, during elections, you walk around, you see police vehicles moving around. And then you go to polling stations, you see police officers manning the stations. But this time around, in some polling stations, polling booths, there were no police officers. On the streets, there were no police officers. you know. And then basically, they announced restriction of vehicles, vehicular movement, but we saw people, you know, operating commercial vehicles. Keke was there, picking people, you know, they move about the way they want to. We even saw people engaged in their businesses. It hasn't happened before that you see people opening their shops, bringing out wares to hawk and all these. I even saw a vehicle fully loaded with people and then goods, probably heading to Enugu State. So when I complained, they said they might be caught around Stanel, where we have an observer. He said that
question on the deployment of the officers. We had some officers mention to us that, oh, they were not sure about where they were posted to, so they had gone to the wrong place. Even, INEC officials telling us, oh, they went to a wrong place, then they had to like redirect them there. That's one. Two, I know they had mentioned there was about 5,178 polling units within the city. So because we went to close to about 2 different local governments, you know, went Oka North and Oka South. And you could take a drive of 15 minutes without seeing one polling station. I'm glad I was in Ondo State with majority of people here, and other elections we've done in 2023 and 2019. I mean, I know INEC has done a whole redistribution of the polling units. However, you can take a 15-minute drive and not see any polling unit. So you ask yourself, one, is there no polling unit for that location? Or do they have to go a whole long mile? And if you're telling them to go a whole long mile and they are not allowed to drive, let's be and again, this is my personal opinion. This is not the stand of my observation mission. So please, this is my personal opinion. But in a scenario where you're telling someone to take a 30-minute walk to vote in the country we are in today, knowing the appetite of people towards governance and democratic process, if I were in their shoe, I don't think I would come out to walk for 15 minutes or 20 minutes in order to find the polling unit. So it makes reference to the point of where are these 5,178 polling units if you're taking drives. And I mean, polling units we found, they were like inside somewhere, which, you know, raises questions. And most importantly, I think I'd like to address the issue of INEC. I'm of the opinion that INEC prepares for elections with the mindset that there is going to be a low turnout, because we went to a couple of polling units today and elections started at 8:30 and it's 10:30, and you ask them, okay, how many people have gone through this process so far? There's a queue at the back, by the way, and you ask them, in 2 hours, how many people? And they tell you 7 people in a polling unit where you have about 878 people to vote. So in a serious, let's assume the appetite to come out and vote is there. Are you telling me that between 8:30 a.m. and 3 p.m., let's assume they say 1 more hour extra, the people that could only take 7 people in 2 hours are going to do 170-something people in 5-6 hours? It says a lot about their preparedness again, and I think, again, please note this is my personal opinion, but I think we still have a long way to go regarding voter apathy, regarding INEC's preparation for election. And someone on the platform, they had mentioned we need to take it to the grassroots level. I'll use the High Commission of Canada as a case study. Through our Canada Fund for Local Initiative, we fund numerous CSOs whose work is on youth political participation in the grassroots level. I mean, one project currently is the Young Political Participation Project with Impact, and it's to address the lack of voter apathy in the grassroots level. However, if the people still don't have faith in the system, if they don't have faith in the process, no amount of discussion or anything you do is going to bring them out. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think those comments are well noted. It's just to say thank you for coming. Most of the things we're talking about, I remember yesterday we spoke in our stakeholders briefing about PU voter ratio. And we spoke about in the average in the state is between 495 to 500 in terms of voter to PU ratio. And it's actually so bad in the local government, in the senatorial district like the Anambra North, right? If we're seeing all of this within Oka South and Oka North, I want to also imagine what happens in all of those interlands. So if we look at that, sometimes we tend to say the aspect of turnout is solely about insecurity, but I think in the real sense, data has shown that it is actually more than that. So at this point, it's just to say thank you so much to the stakeholders, and of course to the member of the press. Is just to say that we also have our sister organization, CDD, that will be doing their briefing. And I think it should be any moment from now they will start at the Hilton Leisure. They actually delayed theirs for us to be able to go first. So it's also important that as we move from here, please, member of the press, stakeholders, let's move to the CDD Press Center. Thank you.